The World Health Organization has announced that it will set up an independent team to evaluate the COVID-19 pandemic. Some WHO member countries have accused China of not being transparent during the outbreak of the virus. Speaking at a virtual WHO assembly meeting, the Chinese president committed to supporting the independent investigation. President Cyril Ramaphosa called for united action to combat the pandemic. Let's take a look at this report from Sophie Mokoena.
Launched in 1948 after the Second World War, this UN agency looks at all health-related issues. Since its establishment, the World Health Organization has managed countless health challenges around the world, COVID-19 being the recent one. Millions have been infected and thousands killed by the virus. This has led to tensions, with some member countries accusing China of not being transparent during the outbreak in that country. Today, China hit back.
All along, we have acted with openness, transparency, and responsibility. We have provided information to the WHO and relevant countries in the most timely fashion. We have released the genome sequence at the earliest possible time. We have shared control and treatment experience with the world without reservation. We have done everything in our power to support and assist countries in need.
The World Health Organization says it stands ready to do just that.
I will initiate an independent evaluation at the earliest appropriate moment to review experience gained and lessons learned, and to make recommendations to improve national and global pandemic preparedness and response. But one thing is abundantly clear: the world must never be the same. We do not need a review to tell us that we must all do everything in our power to ensure this never happens again. Whatever lessons there are to learn from this pandemic, the greatest failing would be to not learn from them and to leave the world in the same vulnerable state it was before.
Other leaders have called for unity during this difficult time.
The pandemic has devastated the livelihoods of millions of people in many countries. The global recovery depends on our ability to accept the reality that this virus will be with us for some time and that we need to prepare to adapt accordingly. The social distancing, hygiene, and other protocols recommended by the World Health Organization must become part of our everyday lives. Africa affirms its full support for the World Health Organization, which has been key in guiding the international response to the pandemic.
It should also be a moment for remembering the intentions of the WHO's founding fathers in 1948. They wanted to build a new world where everybody could enjoy the best possible standard of health, and that's a fundamental right for every human being. We should also remember the progress that we've made together with WHO towards achieving that goal.
No country has been spared by this pandemic, so no country can solve this problem alone. We must work together.
China says it will help Africa.
China will establish a cooperation mechanism for its hospitals to pair up with 30 African hospitals and accelerate the building of the Africa CDC headquarters to help the continent ramp up its disease preparedness and control capacity.
And a stern warning from WHO.
This is a dangerous enemy with a dangerous combination of features. This virus is efficient, fast, and fatal. It can operate in the dark, spread silently if we are not paying attention, then suddenly explodes if we are not ready, and moves like a bushfire.
Sophie Mokoena, SABC News, Johannesburg.
All right, let's get a little bit more on the story. And on the line, we're joined by our SABC foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, a good piece there, just giving us a little bit of background from yesterday and the developments. But of course, this morning, we see even more developments to that story with the US President Donald Trump putting out quite a scathing letter towards the WHO, saying that they have been acting with the Chinese in a very, very bad way. Let me just summarize it that way. And has said they're giving them 30 days to come clean as to what's actually going on, or they will completely stop funding altogether and not just suspend it. What do you make? What's going on?
Well, the tension started, I think, 2 months ago when Donald Trump started questioning the role China played in terms of sharing information after the outbreak last year. And Donald Trump, quite frank and very brutal, saying that China didn't divulge or give all information in terms of how the disease started, where it started, and what were the reasons. And therefore saying it was difficult for general population in that country to find a way to protect themselves. But above all, it was very difficult for countries to be able to prepare for this outbreak. And therefore saying China must take responsibility for the spread of this virus, even calling it a Wuhan China virus. And therefore this has led to tensions between the two countries. But it's not about that. It's about the trade war between China and the US. We know before the outbreak of this virus, there was a trade war between China and the United States of America. This is the continuation of Donald Trump attacking those countries that he feels are not supporting the U.S. policy on America First. In other words, he wants to build a much stronger United States of America, and he is trying to crush whoever stands in his way on this. And therefore, we saw that letter yesterday being leaked. What a coincidence on the day when the World Health Assembly is sitting and he didn't participate, but the Secretary of Health did participate, and he was very brutal against China, even though he didn't mention President Ping, but also didn't mention the country, but he was quite scathing on China in terms of how they handle this. So we expect more statements today from Donald Trump, and using his own assembly on the side, the private assembly on the side.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is not going to end here because of the US also threatening to completely leave the membership of the WHO, and a lot of scathing words towards China and the WHO. Just quickly, China's response to allegations of being transparent about the outbreak of COVID-19, how was it received by other member countries? I mean, do they also ask questions with regard to how China handled this?
Well, as you are aware that towards this World Assembly, President Ping did reach out to some leaders around the world to try and explain and also lobby that they should support China's position and defense here at this assembly. On Saturday, he spoke to President Ramaphosa and many other leaders. And therefore, when you look at the response, particularly from the G77 countries and also non-aligned movement countries who are part of the WHO, there was a support, and all of them using one word: review, not investigate. Review, not investigate. The same with the Director General, Dr. Tedros, used the word review, and China saying they will support the WHO-led review on the matter. Therefore, you can see that China was able to lobby support from other countries. And of course, Donald Trump has support also from other developed countries, particularly some G7 member countries, but also, all those countries where you have leaders who are more right-wing inclined, like your countries such as Brazil. They will support him. And we'll see. Today it's the last day, and we are looking forward to hear the resolution and the outcomes of this. But I can tell you today again, the United States of America is going to find a way to hit back or continue to dominate the headline with the attempt to drown the meeting there in Geneva. And we know that Donald Trump is very, very good at that. I mean, yesterday he announced that he's taking the malaria tablets, and everybody was shocked. So he's able to be there, and he's using this generally also for campaigning because the elections are just around the corner.
Yes, I mean, people do need to keep that in the back of their mind. But there's also one other issue before I let you go, Sophie, and that is the transparency with regard to the origin of coronavirus. And again, I refer to this letter through the investigation where the president said the WHO has failed to publicly call on China to allow for an independent investigation into the origins of the virus, despite the recent endorsement for doing so by the emergency committee. Talk to us about this, because there's still question marks about the origins of coronavirus.
Well, I think China was upfront to say that thus far, what they do know is that this coronavirus was something that came from an animal, and that a person did eat that meat, and therefore it spread. And they locate the problem at the market where they are selling the wild animal for people to eat. But unfortunately, they did make it clear that they didn't manage to trace patient zero. Only when they have information about patient zero, they will be able to understand the spread and also the real origin of this virus. You know that after the 1918 pandemic, even today, scientists haven't been able to find patient zero. And therefore, if you don't find patient zero, it becomes very, very difficult to really have a sense of the pandemic and the way forward. That is why you'll also struggle with vaccine and all that. And China is saying scientists in China are continuing. In fact, when I spoke to the CDC director last month, he said they are continuing to try and track down patient zero's history so that they can be able to give a better information. But many people are still questioning China. And China, we know, it's not a country that is very, very open. You know, they follow certain procedures. The president has got powers there. And therefore, people are still not convinced. But as Tedros has indicated that he's going to set up an independent review team to look at this, I think those will form part of the issues that the independent team will have to look at. And therefore, America continues to use that. But people are also blaming America because you have America's health officials being part of the World Health Organization. And also, Tedros has indicated earlier on that when the team went to the WHO team went to China, Wuhan, after the outbreak, there were people from China. Some people are even saying Donald Trump himself ignored the information from the intelligence. Because, you know, he's got an embassy there, and in the embassy, you have spies there. I mean, many people are there just to spy in terms of what countries are doing, either on trade, either on health, either on politics. And therefore, there was a report sent to America. What did he do with the report? He kept praising China, and all of a sudden, he has made an about 10. That's inconsistency.
All right. Sophie Mokoena, our foreign editor, talking to us about what's happening with the WHO, with China and the USA, and that's set to continue and just grow momentum today as well. All right, the time now is 8:30 here on the